Hello there, Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator, and I'm coming to you guys with a new stream, joined by my friend of the channel and one of my favorite people, Aiden. So today we're going to be looking at a documentary that was done by the channel Proverbs Guy, who I have been on record saying is a coward, loser, scumbag. And yeah, so it's been released in parts. Parts 1 and 2 were kind of boring and / not interesting, but we're going to be looking at part 3. I'll put the links to part 1 and part 2 in the description if for some reason you want to check them out just for the context. But geez, so this is basically like a puff piece on Kent Hovind, but there's a lot of basically lies in it about our mutual friend Mark Stoney. So Aiden, why don't you just say hi and kind of go over that for the audience?
Sure thing. Hey everybody. So yeah, this is your friend of a friend of your humble narrator. But yes, Mr. Mark Stoney has, amongst other people, been put up as the cause of the fall of Kent Hovind. And it's something that I, among other people, have said for a while, because this documentary has been a long time coming. He's been, Steven has been alluding and teasing to this documentary coming down the pipeline for a few months at this point. So it's definitely something that people have had in mind. And for a while now, people have said that the one person that will not be put at fault for the fall of Kent Hovind is Kent Hovind. And that's exactly what has been borne out over the course of this documentary. It's been the judge that allegedly said a whole bunch of things that they never actually said, things that were attributed actually to people like Eric Hovind, Kent Hovind's son. It was the prosecutor who submitted a duplicate document even though they didn't actually have anything of pertinence to do with the case. And look at all the things that they did. It was Mark Stoney and Cindy Lincoln. It was everybody except for Kent Hovind. But yes, as AJ said, part 3 is pretty notable for the fact that it really goes more out of its way than any other part to try and put the blame on, I would say, especially Mark Stoney. Cindy Lincoln and others are thrown under the bus as well, but we will see that over the course of watching this documentary and seeing just how incredibly distorted he tries to pass off this history, quote unquote, for DAL, and particularly Mr., not Dr., but Mr. Kent Hovind. With that being said, let's get into it.
Unmasking Kent Hovind.
One of the most terrifying things on the face of the earth is when Americans are united. Mountains can be moved when Americans are united. Nations can be conquered when Americans are united. Culture can be changed overnight whenever Americans are united.
To just side with the prosecution.
Causes is something that Americans thrive on. There's nothing more American itself than to be behind and rallying for a good cause. One of these causes that many Americans, evangelical Americans, found worth rallying behind was hashtag Free Kent, or hashtag Free Kent Hovind. Free Kent Hovind movement
Posy
took off.
So, just at the outset of this stream, I challenge not just AJ, but everybody in this audience. I challenge you to find a single image in this, all of these images that you see associated with Free Kent and the Free Kent movement, find one that has more than 6 people in it. That's my challenge for you. That being said, let's keep going.
Like a storm. It became so embedded in the culture of the United States that you could rarely drive down the road without spotting Free Kent signs in someone's front yard or Free Kent bumper stickers on somebody's tailgate. It was very hard to drive around town or even attend church without spotting a neighbor or a friend with a Free Kent t-shirt. Christians, believers of all different denominations, rallied behind the fact that Kent Hovind was thrown into jail unjustly. Kent Hovind was already a household name. What the government didn't anticipate, however, is that they would actually, ignorantly at that, turn Kent Hovind from a household name to a Christian martyr with a lot of pull. They also didn't realize that they were literally creating a monster. Because every believer in their heart who was aware of the Free Kent situation, the Free Kent movement, knew that Kent Hovind
can you go back?
put
Hold on,
away
can you go back?
as a monster.
I like literally creating a monster. I like that. But,
yeah, not just that, but just real quick before it gets to the frame. Before it gets to the frame, I wanted to stop on. I love that they call him a martyr, because last I checked, in order for someone to be a martyr, they have to be killed.
Yeah.
They have to be put to death in order for them to, for the cause that they believe, because they believed in it so much that typically they had the ability to be able to recant or rescind that cause, but they chose not to from the goodness of their... I'm pretty sure there was never a point where Kent was facing a firing squad and he just decided from the goodness of his heart that he was going to stay true to his values. But yeah, let's just give it 1 or 2 seconds here. It's going to get to a frame that I find real funny.
Every believer in their heart who was aware of the Free Kent situation.
Right here. This is just, it's such a beautiful contrast, right? Because you see these like 4 people milling around. They're not even focused on the actual protest itself. It looks like they're just kind of like chatting with each other. Just kind of like minding their own business. And then you've got what I assume to be like either Obama's inauguration or a colorized photo of one of the Martin Luther King protests on the top of the on top to try to like, these 2 things are equivalent to each other. It's the exact same. Kent Hovind trial and the march at Selma, basically the same thing.
Yeah, we have the Free Kent Hovind slightly crowded elevator worth of people, and then we have a Dave Matthews Band concert.
Yeah. But yes, let's see how a Freddie Mercury concert is somehow equivalent to these 4 people below. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'll shut up.
Knew that Kent Hovind was put away as an example to believers. Kent Hovind was done wrong to show other Christians of the persecution that could come their way if we did not lie down, show the government our bellies, and expose ourselves as afraid and submissive. Kent Hovind became a battle cry. Free Kent almost developed into the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. The Free Kent movement was more than just a pastor who was wrongfully incriminated and put behind bars to try to forget. The Free Kent movement was a reminder that once the government starts arresting and putting away people that are in the top 10 famous Christians in the U.S., the government can do that to anyone.
Posse. The top 10 most famous Christians in the U.S. I'll tell you what, if Kent Hovind was imprisoned in like 1992, when I was like an itch in my daddy's pants, maybe Kent Hovind would have been like one of the top 10 most popular Christians in the United States of America. But I don't think that's the case anymore. And you'll see it. Maybe it's this episode or the one before. They'll say at some point, he's just some small town preacher from Pensacola. So which one is it? Is he one of the top 10 preachers in all of America, or is he just some downtrodden little nobody that's getting taken on by the man? I guess we'll have to find out.
Yeah, I mean, you have Joel Osteen, you have John Hagee, you have Kenneth Copeland, and you have Kent Hovind. Totally equivalent in levels of popularity.
Yeah. I think honestly, Kent Hovind, the only thing that Kent Hovind desires compared to him and Joel Osteen, I don't think it's anything to do with the message. It's all to do with the greenbacks. Sorry, I had a lump in my throat there.
One. See, once our religious leaders are persecuted falsely and people stand by and let it happen, that'll become the norm. I think what the government didn't anticipate was the fact that there would be so much outcry. There would be so many phone calls. There would be so many protests outside of courthouses. I think that government workers forgot that we, the people, could still pull together. I actually think that the government workers thought that we, the people, was no longer a community that could be counted on. Those government workers were wrong. Not only did Americans show out en masse to vocalize the fact that we knew our beloved Vindicator was getting the royal shell, citizens of this country sent out a resounding sound wave to all representatives that we the people are still alive, that we the people have our eyes
still
on,
alive,
and that we the people are not so far past and
life.
beyond rallying together for a cause like Free Kent.
The dinosaur behind bars.
So technically, yeah, I was like, about it. I was down. I was ride or die. I was like, I'll go with you and do this. Like, I'll go murder. I'll go take out a. I don't think that's murder.
So it was Chris. It wasn't Kent Hovind.
Well, I don't know. My suspicion is that Mark Stoney wants to kill Chris Jones and Kent, but it doesn't make sense if he's protecting Chris. So maybe he doesn't want to kill Chris.
It is odd. Just Kent.
Steven.
Uh-huh.
All right, so Posy. So the idea here from Adam Lore is that Mark Stoney was protecting Chris Jones. And when you hear that totally bereft of any kind of context, you'll probably think that that's pretty bad. And obviously from that clip, you're not going to get any. But the real context behind that was that Chris Jones was going to be murdered extrajudicially by a group of people through vigilante justice. And Mark Stoney did not want to see that happen. So even Adam, in this clip here, through what he just said, is trying to back that up. So when Mark Stoney hears that somebody's going to be extrajudicially murdered, that being somebody like Chris Jones, who I think myself, Kent, AJ, everybody in this community, I feel, will agree, is a worse person than Kent Hovind in terms of what they have done, in terms of the crimes that they have committed. I think that if Mark Stoney, given those circumstances, did not want that person to be killed, called the sheriff's office, made sure that that person was not going to be killed because he is not in favor of vigilante justice, I don't see how this documentary is going to also, at the same time, make it seem like, oh, well, yeah, but he was also going to go and kill Kent, though. Because it's not in this part, it's in part 2. Anybody can go back and look. But it's directly posited in this documentary, that Mark was going to go and murder Kent. That's a claim that's made in this documentary. It's a bold-faced lie. And I just wanted to clear that up, and we can keep going.
Yeah, so real quick from Thomas Gallipoli for $1.99 super chat. It says, AJ, this is so damn unintentionally hilarious, and I would definitely agree with that. And yeah, this is Adam Lore speaking, and apparently Adam was calling from a psych ward, and he says, I believe it's in this part where Adam Lore says that he's medicated and not in a correct state of mind when he's making these claims. And the claims are never even made confidently. Like you can hear, and you'll hear again later, him saying that, well, I think, Mark was going to go off Chris Jones, but that doesn't make sense if he was also trying to protect him. And this documentary never establishes who Chris Jones is, who Mark Stoney is, who Zaire is. You have to just know all this anime manga lore ahead of time watching this. You have to have read the manga to get this. And it's just so odd for a documentary to just leave out huge swaths of information and context like that.
Well, one thing that's important that they did leave in, namely in the previous part, is the fact that I don't know why Steven left it in. It makes him look horrible in terms of somebody to have any level of confidence in whatsoever. But he leaves in the part of the conversation with Adam where he says, like, I could die if this is released. You know that we could say these things in confidence, Steven. You know that we can have this conversation. And I mean, like, is it good that it's out there, in my opinion? Yeah, I do think that it's good. But in the context of being somebody that can be trusted, in the context of being somebody who it's abundantly clear that this was intended to have been said in confidence, for you to just run out and release this as a documentary and just throw those sorts of little quips in there basically for shock value, I think says a thing or two about your priorities as a person.
Yeah, and it's sort of like the the meat and potatoes of this whole documentary so far is the conversation with Adam. That's the big the big reveal, according to the way Boland framed it. And I agree. Like when I was listening to this, like he says, like, this is going to be private, right? And Steven tells him, yeah. And it's like, wow, so you just betray people's trust?
Well, he betrays people's trust and then he flaunts it openly. That's like, it's one, and I'm not even saying like it's good to betray someone's trust and not do that, but it's just, once again, to just stack things one upon another. It's one thing to betray someone's trust, it's another to betray someone's trust, and then go and just openly expose that and flaunt that for everybody to see openly, just for the sake of trying to add more shock value to your little puff piece.
Mm-hmm.
Mark hates Kent Hovind.
What do we got there, Joseph?
It's true.
Turned down for what? I don't know.
I wish we had Big Bad Mama's kazoo here.
Oh, damn.
Just imagine it in your head, everybody.
Sunflower, you got it, okay. That doesn't prove they're related to pigs. The public school textbook showed these family trees with everything related to the pig and the sunflower. They have a common grandpa. That's called stupid. Sunflowers teach you a great lesson. You can learn something amazing from a sunflower.
Yeah, I'm letting this play. We're gonna suffer through this.
The Free Kent movement was something that was felt generations after the fact. Again, when Donald Trump was
Pause.
It hasn't
Yeah.
been generation.
It hasn't been one generation after the fact, Stephen. Even if you take like the most liberal, which I'm sure you would hate me taking the most liberal definition, haha, funny. But if you take the most liberal definition of generation, which is 20 years, it hasn't been one generation since the Free Kent movement.
No.
So it can't have been felt generations after the fact. And once again, he's cutting to another big crowd of people right here. And he's trying to build the association in people's minds like this is the Free Kent movement. Here's a big crowd of people that gathered out for Kent. But I promise you, if you had a Back to the Future DeLorean and you went back, you go back in time, right, with the stupid getup and everything, and you go and you ask everybody what's going on, not a single person there is going to know what Kent Hovind's fucking name even is. So, no, I don't really approve of this as honest documentarianism, Steven. Sorry.
Yeah, usually a documentary filmmaker would not say in the documentary that the subject is my personal friend. Like, you're
Right.
supposed to remain neutral.
Right, like, he does that because, as he has already stated, the first place in the entire planet where this has been premiered wasn't here on YouTube. It was being premiered privately over at Dinosaur Adventureland. So he needs to include things like that in it because ultimately, this really isn't made to actually inform people about anything. This is made to bolster Kent's ego. And it's made to justify Steven's continued existence at DAL.
Yeah.
running for president. It was a passion and a zeal, a patriotic sense of duty, a believer's sense of martyrdom. Kent Hovind started so many fads that go under the radar and he will never get credit for or acknowledgement. Kent Hovind is a household name for many reasons. He is a household name for Dinosaur Adventureland. Kent Hovind is a household name for being among the most famous creation vindicators in the world. Kent Hovind is a household name for men who would stand up to the government and tell them, you are not entitled to what's God's. But I think the thing that made Kent Hovind the biggest name is Free Kent Hovind. Let's go check that out.
Can we point out just real quick? If you're driving around with a whole bunch of like neon green signs on your car, aren't you like purposefully trying to like distract people while you're on a motorway with like, hey, look at this sign. I know that you're going like 80 miles an hour down the freeway right now, but yeah, Free Kent Hovind. What does that say, Billy Joe?
Oh no, Skeeter, the tire fell off.
I'm sure Ken Hovind would be right there at the hospital to let people know about DAL and pass out flyers. I mean, like, it wouldn't be the first time. That's all I'm going to say.
It is the May 23rd, 2015, and I wanted to share what's going on with my situation. I'm still wearing an orange jumpsuit, obviously, still in the Santa Rosa County Jail, and I should have gone home Monday. Here's the situation. Let me explain how it works for everybody so you know who to call and what to do. In 2007, Congress passed a law called the Second Chance Act, which says if a person's in prison for the first time and it's nonviolent, they can be given 6 months home confinement off the end of their sentence.
All right, so let's just recap so we're all on the same page.
Pausing.
Kent Hovind is being held.
They can be given it. It doesn't mean that they're entitled to it, Ken. The way that he's like phrasing this is like he's just entitled to be able to be given this exemption so that he can be allowed to be out 6 months ahead of time. But we know for a fact through other people's testimonies of Kent Hovind's prison experience that he was nothing but quarrelsome with every single jailer that he ever had. He constantly tried to stir up trouble in every single prison that he was sent to. It's why he got what was termed diesel therapy in one of these documentaries. Maybe it's this one. Now, I'm sorry for spoilers, everybody, but yeah, like the reason why is because Kent Hovind was nothing but he would constantly have sermons in his cells that had well over the limits of people that were allowed within the cells. He knew that he wasn't allowed to do that. He would do it anyways. He would constantly use his influence with the prisoners that he had within his clique to be able to extort other prisoners. Like these are things that Kent Hovind is known to have done while he's in prison. But hey, who cares, right? It's no big deal.
Held in the United States as a religious political prisoner under the farce of structuring a crime which, as described in great detail on the previous episode, we've explained almost every American in the United States is guilty of.
Pause.
It's a
Pause.
law that they...
Rotating Hovind.
Yeah. I like the rotating Hovind, honestly. Like that'd be good for a YouTube poop if anyone wants to make one. That'd be a good little segment for it. But anyways, this idea that structuring is something that any American is guilty of, as Steven said earlier, well, by the definition that he gave of it in part 2 of this documentary, he would be right. Because the definition he gave of structuring was any amount that you take out below $10,000 and you don't report. Which almost is to say that in his version of events, Kent Hovind was just taking out $20 in order to go get a quick car wash and go get a quick, $2 coffee over at the diner. And next thing you know, the SWAT team's kicking in his door and trying to make sure that he gets sent to prison. Like, that's not what happened. He was constantly taking withdrawals directly under $10,000. Wasn't it like $9,500 or somewhere in the neighborhood of that amount? Mm-hmm. Like on a bi-weekly basis. And he's trying to sit there bold-faced and say, that's just something that any American has done at any point in time. Yeah, I know so many people that on a bi-weekly basis take out $9,500 because I know just, every 2 weeks that just $9,500 expense that everybody has just comes up and you got to pay it. You got to pay your groceries. Oh, man, I know inflation's been real bad, but last I checked, I think groceries is not quite that expensive. I don't know.
When I got my car, we had to take out like about $10,000 from the bank for like the down payments and all that stuff, the title. And not only did they have to report that to the IRS, it put us in a higher tax bracket. That's another thing Kent is trying to avoid, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's well known through both his DVD number 5 that was also mentioned in the previous part in one of his documentaries. Oh, that's the thing that sunk Ken Hovind and it ruined his life. No, it didn't. One of the things that's mentioned in DVD 5 is one of the things that did actually ruin his life. It had nothing to do with evolution. It had to do with all of his tax protesting and his constant need to act like he's a sovereign citizen where he gets all the benefits of living in the United States, but doesn't have to actually uphold any of the laws or be beholden to any of them. The logic that you'd probably have when you were in 2nd grade and you thought that you'd be able to take anything from anybody because you didn't quite understand what property was because your frontal lobe hadn't quite fully formed yet. Yeah, Kent did, but it didn't actually quite develop, so to speak, as you can tell through his constant need to not pay his fair share, but reap all the benefits of the society that he doesn't pay that share within.
Right. And the judge elucidated this during sentencing, saying that, you live under the protection of the U.S. military. You have protection from our police and firefighters, drive on the roads, enjoy all the benefits that taxes pay for, but you don't want to contribute. It's just kind of scummy.
Well, not only does he not want to contribute, but he'll go even further. As we noted fairly recently, he's lobbied against the government and complained constantly that he hasn't gotten his road near his property paved at government expense. So it's not enough for him to just be a leech upon the governmental system, because a typical parasite will try to be really it'll try to be subtle in its parasitism. It'll try to lurk in a way that it can't really like be detected, and it can be there for as long as possible. But no, Kent is a little bit more bold than that. He needs to try and assert himself and make sure that the government doesn't just benefit him at the expense of him, or at the lack of expense of him, but it actually needs to pay millions of dollars to provide infrastructure so that the 2 buses a year that come out to his dilapidated property can make sure that they don't get a couple bumpies in the road on their way to and from. Give me a break.
It's at the expense of others, really.
Well, yeah, it is at the expense of others. But I mean, who cares? This is a man that's always made his living off of the expense of others. Somebody that hasn't actually worked an honest day for someone else in his entire life.
Yeah. Alrighty.
That they use to catch drug dealers, but that actually, in terminology, absolutely applies to all Americans. There's no way around it. So we can see the abuse of power taking place. We can start to draw a picture of why. We showed how dangerous DVD number 5 was to the establishment, which, by the way, run the biggest pedophile ring in the world.
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. Could you please give us your name? Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, wow, I'm shocked.
This has been drawn through conclusions leading to Jeffrey Epstein. This has been pointing fingers back to the Clinton administration since the 90s.
Look at this guy on the left.
He's so happy to be that guy. Like, there's that guy, but you're looking at that guy. I'm looking at the guy directly below the gold painting right there, dude. That guy is loving life right now. He just loves to be wherever he is right now. Meanwhile, Bill's like, "Hey Jeff, what's up, bro? I'm gonna dap you up real quick."
Big Max. No, this guy won the world's smallest face award.
He really did. But no, look, he may be small, but there's a lot of joy. He's very happy. He's a very happy quadrillionaire. I'm sure that.
Yeah.
None of this is new. However, it is all now becoming mainstream. The first tip of the exposure of these demonic people engaged in these sex trafficking rings of children.
Yeah,
the first exposures.
This guy, another guy that got highlighted in, I think, the previous part. This is a guy that submitted one document to Ken Hovind's case that was found to be a duplicate. It was found to be a duplicate, and it wasn't even actually carried forward to the trial. But anytime that you actually listen to this from Steven's perspective or Kent's perspective or anybody on his side, this guy was critical in Ken Hovind's trial. You know why? Because this guy did the horrible crime of sexting, I believe it was, with children. And yeah, that is a horrible crime. I'm sure anybody will agree that is a horrible crime. But I'm pretty sure that aiding and abetting multiple pedophiles and allowing them to come on the property of a place known to be frequented by children, it's also pretty bad as well. But hey, who cares, right? Pedophiles are only bad when they're involved against Kent.
Yeah, I just love the irony of simultaneously saying that somebody who had very little to do with Kent's trial is somehow, and that this person who they will claim had a lot to do with Kent's trial was a bad person, and was trying to get down with a child.
Yeah,
but Chris Jones is Kent's friend, and he is convicted on 6 counts, and another one that's currently pending that happened at DAL, dude.
And Brady Byram is an admitted pedophile. He's somebody that's known to have not just been a pedophile, but an incestuous pedophile on top of that. So, I mean, hey, who cares, right? As long as they're for Kent, then all of a sudden their pedophilia doesn't matter. But when they're against him, it baffles me. It really genuinely does that Stephen will, in one hand, try to profiteer off of the shock value that comes with one of the people that was associated with Kent's trial was a pedophile. but won't mention the fact that he associated with 2 pedophiles in the documentary. You know what I find funny? In the teaser trailer that he said in one of those teaser trailers, "Show me 20 pedophiles. I bet you could only show me 2." Haven't seen that in any of these documentaries, though. Only saw it in one of the teaser trailers that got removed basically a few minutes after it first got put up, because even he realized that that was such a horrible statement to put in his documentaries. So release it, Steven. I know you're going to be watching this stream. Release the part where you say, "Show me 20 pedophiles. I bet you could only show me 2." You were really confident when you said that.
Well, thanks to Big Bad Mama, we have that clip preserved on my channel. It's a short, so you can go and look that up if you want to see the clip from that trailer. But yeah, even if Atchison was a pedo, that doesn't make Kent Hovind innocent.
Of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. It has nothing to do. It has nothing to directly pertain to Kent Hovind's case whatsoever. So even if this guy was, like, let's just say that he did more than submit a duplicate document that didn't actually get through because it was revealed to be a duplicate document and irrelevant to the actual case. Let's say that he was the prosecution. He was the prosecuting attorney in that case. Doesn't change, as AJ just elucidated, the fact that Kent Hovind was still overwhelmingly guilty of the crimes that he had committed and chose not to submit a plea.
Right. Because his lawyer just had him convinced that he was innocent, apparently. But Big Bad Mama brings up a really good point here. So I say where there's smoke, there's fire. And we have 2 confirmed pedos at DAL. But also, Kent Hovind got picked up from jail by Jim Bob Duggar. And both Kent and his son, Eric Hovind, have defended the son who, is also guilty of doing things with his sisters. Josh Duggar, I think is his name. And the FBI agent that worked on his trial said that the stuff that was contained on his laptop was the worst content he'd ever seen in 35 years of working at the FBI. So this is just like, what else is there that we don't know about? You know what I mean? And that's why I just find it laughable to try and present this as what is the implication here? I would love Bolin to back that up, but yeah, let's continue.
Were done by God himself as retaliation for the persecution of one of his anointed, Kent Hovind.
What you're learning tonight is very disturbing.
Yes, an assistant U.S. attorney from Florida finds himself on the wrong side of the law tonight. He's accused of going after a
they do cover it in this
girl
one.
from right here in Metro Detroit.
The intended victim is from Macomb County.
Dr. Kent Hovind has spent the last 8 years in prison for things he didn't do. Charged with structuring a law which the IRS has since apologized for and changed their policies regarding, yet all the while, Dr. Hovind was in prison. For those who are not following the latest court case, Kent was put back on trial with the same judge, Judge Margaret Rogers, who put him away for 8 years on bogus charges. Now the retrial of Dr. Hovind is once again thrown.
Judge Margaret Rogers, who it has been claimed said that Kent Hovind committed a crime that was worse than rape, even though it is known that that was actually a statement made by Eric Hovind.
Yep.
Yeah, that one. Just wanted to make sure. Just wanted to double check.
Yeah, it's also nowhere to be found in the court transcript. According to Kent, it got deleted.
Yeah, because things just get deleted from the court transcript all the time. That's something that people can just do at a whim.
Yeah. Also, the location of Jimmy Hoffa was also deleted.
Yeah. I feel like they both got deleted at the same time.
Yeah, same time. Same backstroke, same person, same Hovind.
All of which, except for one, have not stuck.
Okay, it's March 12th. Here's the verdicts as the jury read them. Kent E. Hovind, he had 4 counts against him. Count 1, conspiracy to commit mail fraud, unable to come to a verdict. Count 2, mail fraud, unable to come to a verdict. Count 3, criminal contempt of court, guilty. Count 4, mail fraud, unable to come to a verdict. So basically, Kenny Hovind was found guilty of criminal contempt of court, and that was it. The rest of them were unable to come to a verdict. However, criminal contempt of court, as per my understanding, has an unlimited maximum sentence. So with this particular judge, that's a tough situation, and we'll have to wait and see. She puts her sentencing for Kenny Hovind Friday.
So I will say, this is a crowd of more than 6 people. It's not a free Kent protest. It's basically just the reading of the verdict, which I imagine is significantly easier to attend because it's just literally like showing up to a courthouse, listening to somebody talk for a few minutes, and then shuffling your butt back into a car and going home. It's a little bit easier than attending a protest. But it is a crowd of more than 6 people. So maybe it doesn't directly meet the criteria, but hey, kind of, I guess. I don't know. Let's keep going.
Guy's got a world-class scowl, the guy on the left.
He does. He really does. He looks like he just heard that a meteor is about to hit the earth. And he doesn't know what he's going to do with the information.
Friday, June the 12th,
it's going to be all right.
2015 at 9 a.m. Anything else anybody wants to say?
You might want to say that the Kent Hovind's criminal contempt of court was from a June 2007 order.
Right. If I understand.
Which was barely discussed during the whole proceeding.
Right.
I didn't even know it had a second contempt
Right.
of court. I just knew the 2012.
Pausing.
I didn't know anything about 2007.
Barely discussed. I mean, like, barely discussed is still more discussed than the comments that were proposed to have been made by the judge that the trial was, Ken Hovind's criminal acts were worse than rape. So I guess one of those is a little bit better than the other. But hey, I guess a lacking of context is perfectly okay when it's against Ken. Just want to point that out.
I was there for most of the trial.
Right.
Right now, it is being deliberated whether Dr. Hovind will once again return to prison for charges which have no limited sentence. What that means is the judge can arbitrarily assign any amount of time she wants to Dr. Hovind for contempt of court, something that occurred back in 2007, when all he was doing was attempting to fight against the charges against him.
That's contempt of court.
We need to get as many letters as we can to the defense attorney, Thomas Keith, here in Pensacola, Florida. They need to be addressed to the judge and sent care of Thomas Keith.
Amen.
And
Amen.
support of Kent.
And should we also write Mr. Miller, the congressman?
I would recommend that we all.
That guy sounds like Adam Lohr's dad.
Any of the congressional leadership here.
Okay.
We need to be contacting them and putting as much pressure as we can on for a pardon.
Amen.
See, the establishment thought that putting Kent Hovind in prison for 10 years would stop Kent Hovind. But they were wrong. Being in prison did not stop Kent Hovind from witnessing. Kent Hovind led almost 800 men to the war.
Pausing. I love. Can you just go back like a couple seconds? Once again, no. Go back to go back to Kent bound and gagged in Guantanamo Bay.
We all write Jeff Miller.
Okay.
Congressional any issues we can on for a pardon.
For 10 years.
Here we go. Yeah. Like, wow, you really did search high and low for like the most dilapidated cell that you possibly could. I want to find the cell in Alcatraz that they literally throw the most horrible indigent people in the entire world, and I want to see it like 70 years after they abandoned it as a prison. That's where they throw Dr. Hovind into. It's like, it's just so silly. It's such a anybody who is not partial towards Kent Hovind is going to look at imagery like this and they're going to laugh. And the reason why they're going to laugh isn't because they're attacking Kent Hovind. Let me just make that abundantly clear. The reason why they're laughing is because if you actually take a look at Kent's cell, is it probably going to be the nicest thing on earth? Obviously not. It's the American prison system. But it's going to be a little nicer than this, I feel like. I feel like if we got an exact image of the 20 different cells that he got put into over the course of his prison sentence, I feel like none of them are going to look quite like this one.
Yeah, Kent Hovind, at least for a majority of his time, was in a minimum security federal institution where it's like, Kent has said this himself, it's not individual cells. It's more like a big dorm room with bunk beds. Now, that's not, obviously it's not ideal, but it's not like this. This is an exaggeration. And I just love the cliche of the duct tape over the mouth. Like, that's not such a cliche, overdone image these days.
Like, Steven, do you not realize that it may make your case look a little ridiculous if you're trying to depict that this guy that got put away on a couple of charges for 9 years, you know, for ultimately 9 years in the American justice system ain't all that bad compared to some of the other sentences that are handed down to people. Let's be honest. In a minimum security facility, you're going to act like that's somehow akin to like a cell that's worse than the one that you guys would have thrown Osama bin Laden into if you guys would have taken him alive. Give me a break, Steven.
Yeah, I'm just going to real quick just share this image. So this is probably more accurate to what Kent's situation was like.
More like a barracks, essentially.
Yeah, like it's similar to the military school I went to when I was in high school. Like, yeah, you're living with a bunch of other guys, and the quarters are more cramped than you might like, but it's not. The walls aren't rotting. You know,
right.
there's not water dripping from the ceiling. There's not rats running around, and you don't shit in a bucket.
You have lockers for your possessions. You don't crap out in the open right next to your other cellmate. There's an actual area for you to be able to use the bathroom separate from other people. You know, you know, the bunk beds certainly aren't ideal, but they're a lot better than certainly some of the beds you'll get in more maximum security for prisons, let alone Supermax or any of the stuff like that. But once again, even Supermax, right? Like, you look at some of the prisons in Colorado or something like that. Yeah, the cells are small and they're incredibly cramped and the windows are tiny, but they're a lot better shape than what we see here.
Yeah,
I know that we spent a minute or two just kind of like focusing on that, but I just think that this is really illustrative of just how absurd the disconnect is between how these people think that Kent was treated and how they want to make it seem like he was treated and the actual reality of the situation.
Yeah.
Would stop Kent Hovind, but they were wrong. Being in prison did not stop Kent Hovind from witnessing. Kent Hovind led almost 800 men to the Lord.
Welcome to our YouTube channel. This is Kent Hovind testing out a new camera. This is going to be a short one. Hopefully we'll be able to get all the techno stuff worked out where this will be even better quality.
All the techno stuff.
And everything. Thank you so much, Max, for the new camera and tripod and everything. Appreciate you. I got a letter in the mail yesterday, I believe. Carl Heath was one of the prisoners I led to the Lord while I was in the hole in Yazoo City, Mississippi.
Can we pause real quick?
Met him.
So let's just point out, okay, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but we are 15 minutes into this Kent Hovind documentary, and this is the first time that we're really getting to hear Kent speak uninterrupted.
Yeah.
Like, all the rest of it has just been fluff, trying to like build up your idea of who Kent is supposed to be in your head, and like prefacing that he's this like trodden upon victim that had to endure this horrible prison sentence and Guantanamo Bay for acts of terrorism in Pakistan in 1974. But
Gulag.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Plenty of things, but this is certainly one of them.
Vent, and he was just very ready and anxious to know the Lord, and amazing opportunity there to witness through the AC vent while we're both in solitary confinement, or at least in the hole. Here's a letter that he sent me, and if you'd like to write to him, I think it'd be a great blessing. This is going to be a real short video because it is a test of the new camera system. Okay. Dear Brother Kent, I pray that you and your family are doing well. I want to thank you for saving my soul. Technically, it was the Lord saved him, not me. Okay, I can't save anybody. I walked away from being a Mormon. You opened my eyes. By the way, we did talk a lot about Mormonism through the vent there. You opened my eyes in so many ways. God bless you. I read the Bible each day now. Today, I read about how we become increasingly aware of our sinfulness and weakness. How I know and see now that I walk with the Lord when I do sin, I see it and feel bad. the few letters I did get from people has been a blessing. Please, could you put my address on YouTube? Getting letters of the Word of God not only puts a smile on my face, but helps me so much with reading my Bible. I don't know if you heard the good news, but I will be out of the hole next month and on my way to a new prison. I am so done with the old life and the things I was doing. This September of 2015, September 7th, is 4 years of being sober from all drugs. Smiley face. It feels good, and I know that with God's help, please keep my family in your prayers as I will do the same to you. God bless you. Take care.
Yeah, thank you, Kent, for helping me figure out that I'm a sinner who deserves to go to hell, and that now I realize how my weakness, how weak I am, and I feel bad because of that, and I feel ashamed. So thank you for letting me realize all my inadequacies through Jesus.
Kent Hovind, at first, I came into prison and I had the idea that I, as a human being, was capable of shaping my own destiny through the fact that I have agency and the ability to choose in my life. And, I thought that I'd have the ability to make my own way in life, but it actually turns out that I have a pre-stamped, pre-put-upon way of how I'm supposed to live my life. And it turns out the way I'm living, it's no good, thanks to you. I'm just so glad that you showed me that the only way that you'll be able to reach into my heart is by following everything that I say and doing everything that I do. I'm sorry, folks.
Being in prison for 10 years, they thought would stop Kent Hovind from baptizing people. It didn't. Kent Hovind baptized.
He did it in the prison toilets.
Now close your eyes now. Everybody that I've done this to beforehand has gotten their eyes have gotten all pink for some reason, Hovind.
Swirlies protect you from Satan.
Hundreds and hundreds of men in the faith as new believers. They thought putting Kent Hovind away for 8 to 10 years would stop the spread of his
What was
materials.
that jump cut? Also, how is it 8 to 10 years? Like, he's served his prison sentence. It's a finite number, Stephen. And this is my problem. This is that he really has. He's, over the course of these 3 parts, he's actually quoted different numbers each time.
Yeah.
The first time it was 10 years. The next time it was 8 years. Now it's, it was 8.5 in part 2. And now it's 8 to 10 years in part 3. So I just, if you guys are going to do basic editing, right? Here's a part, Stephen, where I'm, just genuinely, just take the internet persona stuff aside for just one moment, okay? I'm just talking to you right now. If you want to make a competent documentary, then you'd probably better make sure that the basic facts of the case that you're talking about are consistent, throughout the parts of your document, so you don't flood basic things like Kent Hovind went to prison for 8 to 10 years, and he did jump cut there. He did. It goes to show that he had something else there. He said something else, probably said 8 years, and was like, no, that's not good enough. I need to add some more hot sauce onto this bitch.
Faith as new believers.
So put upon...
They thought putting Kent Hovind away for 8 to 10 years would stop the spread of his materials, but it didn't.
Preach, brother!
Homeschooling groups spread his material around like hotcakes.
The more you study about what's happening in the world and the New World Order coming soon, just read Psalms 2.
Yes.
Right now. It's a good tranquilizer. The kings of the earth set themselves.
Everybody get ready to headbang.
Against the Lord, against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. God is laughing at their plans for a new world order.
The nation is under attack from an invader that's riding our light. It's not Iran or Iraq, and in fact, it's an inside plan and an organized trap. No other country that I'd rather be than the US of A, the land of the free, the home of the brave. But what can I say? It seems like our freedoms are melting away as each generation becomes more complacent, lazy and ignorant, scared, independent, afraid to be bold and stand for what's right, enslaved and controlled and frozen with fright. The only thing needed for evil to prosper is those who know better, unwilling to stop.
Ozzy.
United we stand, divided we fall.
Can I just point out the obvious fact that whoever made this and edited it like 10 years ago or whenever this would have been made, like they did a way better job at this than that documentary that's covering it around it. Seriously, like all the cuts are actually good. There's no like 2007 PowerPoint fading in and fading out of things that like only take up half of the screen. Yeah, this is actually like, say what you will about it. It's propagating a pretty shitty message in my opinion, but at least it's competently made.
It's time we demand that these problems got solved. As a nation, there's anticipation. We're praying for justice and exoneration. We've been waiting and we've been patient. Now we demand whole vindication. On the edge as a nation, there's anticipation. We're praying for justice and exoneration. We've been waiting and we've been patient. Now we demand whole vindication. These government agents forgetting their servants, abusing their powers. It makes people nervous. And now we see riots against cops and judges are rushed to pass judgment with all that it touches. They imprison people for victimless crimes, then lobby with unions to rob them all blind. Just think for a minute if all of the tickets just ended by all of us driving the speed limit. Dependent on inmates to finance the system, incentives to keep them locked up in the prison. Now what would they do if no one broke laws and all of us just sat and sang kumbaya? I ask you to wonder and ponder these questions. How far would they go to maintain job protection? Breeds a seduction that feeds us corruption, and most of us all sit around and do nothing. As a nation, there's anticipation. We're praying for justice and exoneration. We've been waiting and we've been patient. Now we demand whole vindication. On the edge as a nation, there's anticipation. We're praying for justice and exoneration. We've been waiting and we've been patient. Now we demand whole vindication. Creating criminals, losing our sovereignty. Prisons with interest in human commodities. Placed inside cages for ages and ages. Creating wages that pay for the maces. They spray in the faces of people. They tase as they place face first on the pavement and raise. Creating an atmosphere like a disease. But we need to remember there's real police. That there's heroes protecting us daily with valor. Respecting our rights to protest and gather. Let's all stand together exposing the frauds. The ones in control behind the facade.
Okay.
Okay.
Made a target by the
Thank you.
Wicked establishment. The
Jeez.
corrupt swamp.
It just keeps going.
Created a monster.
Like it just keeps going. It's just all right. And now we're on to stanza 17, and now we're on to stanza 46, and now we're on to stanza 74. And it's not stopping. It's not stopping. You know what else isn't stopping? All 6 of these people that are gathered outside here. Is this an actual protest? Hold on. Let's see.
They found the right charismatic Southern gentleman. They found the right
it's just one
Baptist
guy.
pastor with a backbone and spine of steel. They just picked the wrong day. That was their mistake.
Wait, is he
And they
yelling
picked
at them?
someone that was charming enough to unite
it's the
people
Satan
behind
guy.
a movement. Something we haven't really seen in a political politician even since, let's be honest, Ronald Reagan. There's few people that Americans will get out of their house for in this day and age and rally outside a courthouse in front of the government in the rain. People did it for Kent Hovind.
So Peter is asking in the chat, who is going to play Kent in the movie? And Zoso said Kent will play himself. And, that would be the obvious choice. But I think it would be a far more bold choice to cast Brett Keane as Kent Hovind. I think that would be really... I think that if you really, if you do him up with the right makeup, right, you give him a good dye job and stuff like that, you could make him look just like Kent Hovind 30 or 40 years after he's dead.
Yeah, no, I think Brent Keane will play Lupin and Gary Busey can play Kent Hovind.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Lupin could play Brett, but yeah, no, that also works pretty well.
I believe people would do it again today for Kent.
You know, I have to admit, I think I meant to play episode 2 because I haven't seen any of this. I've just been enjoying watching it. But you've seen episode 3. You've seen the rest of this.
I've seen it. I've seen it once. Like I said, we were watching it while it was premiere. We had the good fortune of happening to be in one of our meetings while this was being released. So
yeah, because I wanted to get to the stuff about Mark Stoney, and
that's more in part 2. If you're looking for
Yeah.
that's more concentrated in part 2. So if you want to jump back to part 2, you can. I don't think
Yeah,
the stream's going to care too much.
Yeah, I'll grab that link.
For Kent Hovind. See, the government made a huge mistake. They overlooked the fact that people know he's innocent.
Did I hear that audio correctly?
What?
It just sounded like it had a bunch of weird cuts, and it almost sounded like he said it like Hovind. Like, okay, this is what I want to see. So it's actually episode 4.
People involved,
and this. Okay.
Oh my that was quite a bit to cut to. Just
I forgot about
Wow.
Okay, I'm just gonna start it from here.
Because I actually know both people involved in the situation. And after leaving Dinosaur Adventureland on bad terms in 2020 with my family, I ended up becoming friends with Cindy Lincoln, and I would take her side on all of the matter. And her and
That's
I
right.
would plot to try to destroy Kent Hovind.
That's wrong.
We would go out of our way to find recordings and audio that she had illegally obtained of Kent. We would go through checking audio that Cindy had illegally obtained of Kent, and we would take things out of context and we would upload them to YouTube channels to make it public domain information that we could then share on public YouTube channels and we could use to try to destroy Kent Hovind. That was part 1. Part 2 were the interviews.
Pause.
So
Pausing.
we tried to.
So what Steven is saying here, we took those interviews out of context. Mark Stoney, on a couple of occasions, has directly confronted Steven over this alleged context. And he's asked Steven to release it, to have it released. And Steven has refused to do so. It's always been, oh, well, I don't have it anymore, or oh, Cindy's the only one that has it, as if Cindy wouldn't release the full context of everything that wouldn't have happened. I'm pretty sure that she's already released a huge plethora of all of those recordings anyways and made those available. It's not just little snippets out of context, it's very large pieces of audio. So yeah, don't fall for this as though it's just like little pieces that he's just cut out, little chunks here and there. That's not what occurred here. And when he was confronted to actually provide this context, he refused to do so. Let's keep going.
To gather as many former disgruntled volunteers as possible. We coached them into telling very heavy-handed, one-sided stories of events. So not actually lies, but very one-sided stories of a telling. And as I've heard it before, half a truth presented as the whole truth is no truth at all. What Cindy Lincoln and I did was wrong. We painted Kent Hovind to be a monster that he was not. And I ended up having many issues with Cindy Lincoln over time. And Cindy Lincoln would completely turn on me. Cindy would make Facebook posts because I was friends with Kent Hovind. Cindy would make YouTube videos exposing parts of my testimony, and she would go as far as reaching out to people's friends and families on their Facebook accounts, something she even did to Kent Hovind's wife, and she went out of her
Had
way
to do
to
a little
try
cut
to
there,
ruin
Steven.
everyone, taking vengeance for herself, stealing
You know what?
vengeance.
Hold on. Polly.
Something he did to Kent Hovind's wife.
You know, he probably had to cut it because he's had so many that he forgot whether or not she was his wife at that point or not. I mean, that's fair enough. When you've had 4 of them over the past, you're trying to defend someone who's had 4. That's a little bit easy to get this mixed up. But I don't know which one do you think? Out of all of the claims that are made in this documentary, like just in general, I have to ask. Which one do you think is the most ridiculous, AJ?
The claims made in this video?
Yeah.
Probably the stuff about Mark Stoney that we're going to get to. In the other video, probably the idea that that Kent Hovind didn't commit structuring, and that structuring is only designed to catch drug dealers, and like that anybody can be caught, anybody can be considered guilty of it who's ever withdrawn under 10,000, anything under 10,000. They love to leave out the context of the law.
The idea that structuring is something that any American, has done at some point or another in their life. Yeah, that's a pretty good candidate for the last video. Let's get to the Mark Stoney stuff. I'm sorry, I'll shut my trap.
It's from God. That's how mentally ill Cindy Lincoln had become. And that was just the start of it. Then the crazies came. The Mark Stoneys. And others.
Yes!
The drama started.
I just wonder, is that a reference to me? Am I included in the others?
We could only hope that we were allowed a sidelight as others.
Well, you know what, AJ? You didn't want to do an interview where I would only take 3 seconds of the context of what you said and just put it up there so that I could try and snipe at you and insult your character. So you're only going to be other, bitch.
Look at this villain, Mark Stoney, threatening a cockatiel with a knife.
Seriously, what has this cockatiel done to anyone? Look at the menace in his expression. Is
Look
really
at the
what
tattoos.
I want to point out. I know. You think you're gonna have those in heaven, Mark? I don't think so. You're gonna have those in hell. You're gonna wear those proudly in hell, you anti-Levitical law following sinner.
The missing boy that was never missing. The lies that are still being propagated to this day that are so ridiculous.
You want to talk about lies? Let's talk about lies in the chat. I was holding a knife to the bird because it had bit the absolute fire out of me. Sure, Mark. Sure. Yeah. That really looks to me like a bird that just bit the crap out of you, Mark.
Yeah, the fire for the Lord.
Exactly. Maybe that's all it had. And I'm sure as soon as you saw that bird had fire for the Lord, you wanted to snuff it out, you priest of Baal. Let's keep going.
I like how we have Mark at 2 FPS here.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Not even worth addressing.
Now in slideshow vision.
Things about missing bodies and things that you would think you would only see on a Netflix documentary.
Pause. So here is Steven conflating a lie spread by Adam Lore as though this was something that Mark Stoney propagated. Adam Lore, by the way, being somebody who Steven in his last statement about said must be reliable over Mark Stoney because he was so reliable when he made these statements that Steven obviously recorded and put on his documentary. He was so confident about that. He was also plenty confident about the femur bones and the bodies in shipping containers and all of these different threads that led nowhere whatsoever because they were propagated by Joanna, a known, I'm sorry, but somebody that's known to be mentally unstable and somebody that's known to propagate stories about things that are not true. I'm not saying she's mentally unstable as though because she's mentally unstable she's inherently invalid in anything she says. No, I'm not a piece of shit that would insinuate that like Stephen Bolin. I'm just simply saying that factors into the fact that she would go around and make up stories about things like a bunch of gnomes that would come around and take all of her property away from her in the middle of the night and things of that nature. I'm sorry, but when
on the roof of her trailer.
Yeah, like when someone starts talking about the night walkers stamping on your roof in the middle of the night, I'm sorry, but I do have to start kind of questioning you a little bit when the gnomes start coming into your storytelling.
Yeah, his name is Adam Lore because he makes up stories. Like, he makes up his own lore.
No, he does. Yeah, it's whatever it needs to be in the moment. Because when he was confronted on all of this shit by Mark, he said that it was all taken out of context and none of it mattered. But hey, that's another story entirely. I find it funny that Steven will say that Adam is credible when he needs to, but then will try to put things that Adam alone propagated. If you talk to anybody that was around Mark Stoney or Mark Stoney himself when all this was happening, he disavowed it immediately and said, no, this is a rumor from Joanna. Joanna's not somebody to be relied upon in terms of what she says as far as like these different stories that she's been telling is concerned, and here's the reasoning why. Like, all of that was well explained, so I don't understand why he's trying to put this. The only reason why he would be putting this on Mark is to try to further discredit him and to try to make him seem like he's just been going around spreading crazy rumors. No, everything that Mark has said about Kent Hovind has either been provably true or was later on vindicated to be true later on. And I challenge one of these Hovindites to prove that claim otherwise.
Yeah, Mark Stoney did not make up this claim. Adam Lore is the one who made up the thing about the bodies, and that's Steven's source. So again, it's just the willful like dichotomy of having. It's like the Atchison thing with Chris Jones. You know, it's like this total contradiction. You know, but anyway, let's keep going.
Missing bodies and bones and femurs and
a femur's a bone
sheds full of bodies and bones.
It was a shipping container.
Most bizarre, made-up stories you'd ever think up, and propagated by nut jobs like Mark Stoney
and Adam. No, not propagated by Mark Stoney. If this clip doesn't have Mark Stoney saying, and the bodies in the shipping containers, and you got all this other stuff over there. This is my horrible Mark impersonation. Yeah, if it doesn't have that in there, then I'm a little inclined to believe that you're full of shit, Bolin.
I agree with Claude. Adam has a lot to answer for.
I agree as well. He definitely has a lot to answer for, but I think he'll be a little reticent to answer for it because he's not somebody that likes to take accountability for all of this. He just likes to set these dominoes up, watch them fall, and then just kind of go off into his own little reality.
Both good. So is Cindy. We're good, Cindy. All right. Brett is 6 foot.
It was getting out of hand. It
Where was the
honestly
bones?
becoming a headache, and thankfully that time is coming to a pass. Kent Hovind is leveling up, and Dinosaur Adventureland is getting huge. Souls are being saved here, and people are getting baptized.
Wow, Kent did not support that guy at all.
No, he didn't. No, he supported him about as well as he supported Steven in his back when he tried heaving him back up.
Dinosaur Adventureland is getting huge. Souls are being saved here, and people are getting baptized
What was that?
in such a rate.
If that's one of the ones that made the
You
cut,
never
I just
believe
wonder
it.
the ones that didn't make the cut, you know?
Right.
I just want them to get progressively more ridiculous. Like by the end of it, he's just like suplexing people into the water, you know?
Kent.
Whoa.
You need to put your arm and support their lower back. You can't just grip onto their hand and like pull their entire body weight up with that.
No,
Like,
the average American definitely has enough upper body strength to just be able to pull themselves up entirely through the strength of one arm. Yeah, that's a very realistic expectation to have, Ken.
look at that. His points of contact are the back of the neck and the wrist. And
that poor woman got water up her nose. You could tell based on what she's doing right there. She got so much water up her nose.
Yeah, because he's pushing people's heads back.
Yeah,
And
he really
because
is.
Because he's pulling people are trying to plug their nose, and he's pulling their hand away from their nose, and they're getting water rushing into their sinuses. And this guy's foot is coming up. Like,
He just wanted to do a little kick of joy, you know. There's Steve Blood.
God is doing big things, and we're excited.
Where's the clip of Bolin getting baptized? By the way,
well, like, no, not gonna repeat. Yes, I'm definitely
To
gonna
be a part
repeat
of
it.
that.
Unfortunately, the Stephen Bolin baptism clip was lost because the massive tidal wave that was created as soon as he was immersed within the lake actually sank the camera equipment and made the filming completely unsalvageable. So that's why we don't have any footage. There's actually Ken Hovind was the only survivor of that entire incident because he was like right next to it, so he was like right at the confluence of it. He was able to like ride the wave, but everyone else was brutally killed. So
yeah. So we're just kind of memeing now.
That's
we're gonna
basically
wrap
what
the
we're
stream up, but let's just see if
Mark
there's anything
Stoney
else.
is a unique case. Mark Stoney is articulate and he's intelligent, but he's just smart enough to not be smart, but rather dangerous. Mark Stoney was a volunteer at Dinosaur Adventureland.
Hold on. Can you go
for
back a
couple
bit?
Years. Part of that. Mark Stoney is a unique case. Mark Stoney is articulate and he's intelligent,
Oh, he
but
said he's
he's
articulate.
just
Okay.
smart enough to not be smart, but rather dangerous. Mark Stoney was a volunteer at Dinosaur Adventureland for a couple years, and
Pause.
he
Pausing.
was
He was more than a volunteer. He was on the board of trustees.
Yeah.
Steven. He's literally had a higher position in Kent's. He was in Kent's inner circle in a way that you never were. And I feel like that's one of the things that really bothers Steven about Mark is the fact that he got closer to Kent's inner circle than Steven ever has been capable of, even with this documentary, even after all of this work that he's been putting at, just desperately trying to get into Kent's good graces. Mark Stoney has achieved more in his very small, limited amount of time that he had at DAL than Bolin has for years of ass kissing and years of brown nosing. And Mark is well within the position that if he wanted to go back to DAL and he just put all of this behind him, I'm sure Kent would treat him like royalty right all over again because he recognizes that Mark Stoney is a valuable individual to have as far as somebody that's in a position that he can be trusted in authority. So I have no doubt whatsoever that that's one of the big things that gets under Steven's skin is that through what is really only a quarter of the time that Mark had direct contact with Ken, he'd achieved far more than Bolin ever has.
Yeah, that's why Kent considers it such a betrayal because clearly Mark was an asset to Kent. All right, I want to finish this clip and then we'll wrap the stream up. Does that sound good?
Oh yeah, that sounds good.
Is, for all intents and purposes, a good guy. Mark has some redeemable qualities. He's not a terrible person, but he is a terrible liar. And he also is very mentally unstable, as I think this audio that we're going to share with you will clearly dictate.
I mean,
That was a
before he
while.
got
That was like in 22.
Just one more quick
before he
pause.
was
One more quick
arrested,
pause.
They were trying to get him away where someone.
I find it so incredibly telling that when he's trying to say this is a piece of audio that'll show how Mark Stoney is mentally unstable, he doesn't play anything from Mark. He can't. I'm sure he looked high, low, left, right, and center to try and find something, anything to dredge up of Mark Stoney that could make him seem mentally deranged or unstable. He couldn't find anything, so he just has to have Adam back talking him like he does with everybody. With that, I'll shut up.
Shoot and kill.
Oh yeah. They tried to get him to Texas.
Steven, Mark Stoney and I were about to get on a plane. Like, there's so much stuff people don't realize. Like, it's so complicated. Like,
What were you about to get on the plane for?
to kill Mark.
Coming to take justice themselves, a posse
Yeah.
for the
Because Stephen,
Hovind
at
crime.
that point, Chris was still scheduled to be at DAO. Zaire's family was about to shoot them up. They went to get justice. They were going to kill them.
Now look,
Stoney snitches them out, calls the police to save Chris Jones.
That was a hold on.
Mark is like, I don't.
That was a deliberate editing technique right there. I thought the first time Adam just like hitched in his speech there when he was saying Chris Jones. I thought he was just saying and then, or maybe like his audio picked up through the internet or something like that. But no, he's just trying to cut Chris Jones's name out of that. As though what? Like that's going to erase it from existence? If you just cut out him saying Jones, all of a sudden it's what about somebody else, Steven? I don't know. I just found that really. I just noticed that, and I felt like it needed to be pointed out. It's such a sad edit.
I don't want Zaire to get in trouble. I'm gonna go do it. We're gonna go kill this mother. And I was like, dude, let's go do this. Like, let's take him out, because it's not just. I don't know. There's a lot more to this that you guys don't know. Like, it's not just everything that was on a YouTube video. Like, I shouldn't be saying this, but Steven, to you, Steven, I'm telling you.
There's the truth.
This
There's
is
the
what
only
went
truthful
down.
thing that he said.
I know.
We were like
I
ride
shouldn't
or
be
die.
saying this.
It was not even like a question. Oh,
And the thing is 3/4 of it was made up.
what was made up?
3/4 of what Mark and Cindy had everybody rallied up over was made up.
I interviewed Mark before I knew who he was. I thought he was some psycho white supremacist.
You were right the first time. Well, not the supremacist part.
And then he admitted that white supremacist shit in his past, but like, I don't know. The tone of this conversation is all off because.
So there's another lie from Adam about Mark Stoney. Mark's never ever talked about being in anything to do with any white supremacist organization. He's never once elucidated, oh yeah, I was part of the Proud Boys, or I was part of this, or I was part of that. It's never happened. So it's just another blatant lie.
Because I'm in a really weird mood. I'm going through like some shit in my life. And I'm trying to share information with you to be cool to what anyone else in this, if this was public, would be like, from lore, he's supposed to be on the good side. Why is he telling this information to the bad guy?
I mean, this is news to me that you and Mark were going to get on a plane to kill Kent Hovind and Chris Jones.
Do you want me to explain? Explicitly what happened?
I mean, is it a felony for me to know? I don't want any felonies, Adam.
I don't know what that means.
Like, I don't know if this is legal.
If I tell you, what do you mean?
So you don't know
how it would be a felony?
Hold on, Aiden.
I don't know. You know what? I'm just gonna shoot from the hip. Tell me about who were you guys gonna murder, Adam?
That's not what I said.
Okay. So
I think
tell me. You tell me.
I think you may have misunderstood what I said.
You have my full attention. I swear to you.
You realize if this is recorded and gets out, I'm gonna have so much. Like, I could die from this.
Okay. Well, when you reached out, I was excited. I didn't think you were going to be telling me about murder.
I could die.
We can share secret information without it leaking. Like, we've already.
Yes, we have.
We're on the level.
Okay, so I think we didn't understand you were trying to just share. I think what it was is you and I didn't understand he was just trying to share inside information with us. So we've been on defense. But I think he really just wants to share a bunch of weird stuff that happened. Am I right, Adam?
I'll be honest with you, Stephen.
This is a different conversation. I can
like
immediately tell from that.
We've had
voice.
multiple conversations where somehow you catch me on a day where I had some kind of thing and I have to like take medication for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get in this weird mood where I have no filter. I could get on YouTube right now and just whip out my I am in a weird mood where I cannot filter my thoughts.
We will not go live.
And I have a compulsion. I have a compulsion to just go and find a
Pause. So Steven the moralizer, Steven the guy who was so up in arms about somebody swearing that he had to kick them off of their platform and say that he was never going to bring them back. Adam just talked about how he's going to whip out his dick on YouTube because he just had so little inhibition over what he was going to do. That's how little he had self-control in that moment. And Steven doesn't care. You know why Steven doesn't care? Because he's about to get information, and that's all he really cares about. None of this moralizing, none of this, oh my gosh, it's such a faux pas for someone to say something like that. Steven doesn't care.
No. And I mean, him saying, oh, this isn't going to, I won't go live. Like, what a scumbag.
I won't go live, but what I will do is record you. And I just found the earlier thing that he said, I don't know if this is a felony when I'm about to. Big Bad Mama pointed it out. Bolin is a terrible actor. You're right. It was a clearly put upon statement when he said that. He clearly was recording that well before that was said. So I have no idea why if he has such little skills at trying to persuade people, how not only he could say that and expect to get away with it, but how Adam could hear that and be like, uh-oh, that's not, like, how does that not go, whoop, 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 like, red alert, this guy's clearly full of shit.
Yeah.
A live thing and, like, interact with people, you know what I mean? Like, similar to being drunk.
Were you going to murder Kent or Chris?
I was not going to murder anyone.
Who was Mark going to murder? Was it Kent?
Listen to him.
Steven,
listen to him. He's
like
just prying him so
risky
hard.
for me to just straight up say this. Okay, can I just say what happened?
Yes.
Zaire's family, I think it's like stepdad and Zaire, were like, we're gonna go roll up on this motherfucker and shoot him. Right?
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
Mark that he blurted that out publicly.
Publicly.
He fucking snitched it out publicly.
Yep.
When that happened, Mark's reaction to that was he called the police and said, you guys have to protect Chris Jones because Zaire and his family are trying to kill him. He's a snitch. And he's trying to protect Chris Jones. Then that same time, Mark was freaking out.
You were telling us that Chris Jones was about to be 86'd by Zaire's family. Mark called them and said, hey, you got to protect Chris.
It's actually
because they're about to 86 him.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and again, I would never reveal that publicly, but Mark said that out loud publicly.
No, he didn't.
I remember. So
it's not.
Can we hear that clip? No, we'll never hear that clip.
Yeah, I remember. Like, he's just going. It's, it's funny because what Steven just did right there, yep, I remember. This is actually, it just strikes me, and this is why I've always said that people say that Steven is like just a total idiot, right? He's a total buffoon. Haha, 46 IQ, LMAO, what a retard. Yeah, I get that. Like, yeah, he's very uneducated in some regards. That's true. But in some regards, it seems like he really has tried to study manipulation tactics. Because right there, him trying to say that, he's never heard Mark Stoney say anything like that in his entire life. But he's saying that because he's wanting to agree with Adam so that that agreeable demeanor feeds him more information. It extracts more information that he wouldn't have heard if he was like, what? I never heard you say that before. I never heard Mark Stoney say that before. If he said that, Adam would have clammed up. And he would have been like, oh, yeah, well, yeah, no, that's fair enough. And he would try to change the subject to something else. But no, you need to be agreeable so that you get more information squeezed out of the rind of the known liar. Great job, Steven.
It's not me revealing this. This is what Mark said. Mark was freaking out. And he was getting a plane ticket. He wanted to go do what Zaire and their family was going to do so that they didn't get in trouble. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm gonna go do it so that Zaire doesn't get in trouble. But he's also trying to protect Chris Jones. So it's like, I don't even understand what's going on. But then Skylar talked him out of it. He's like, your daughter, you got to think of your daughter. You can't do this. He was like freaking out.
Pause.
And Skylar convinced.
That's a bold-faced lie. He literally just pulled that out of his fucking ass. Like, he pulled that out of his ass. Nobody has ever said that. Skylar never said anything of the sort. So he literally just extemporaneously just made that up and is just feeding that information to him because, as he already said earlier, he doesn't want this to be recorded. He doesn't want to be held to account. I don't care what he says about how he might die over this, whatever bullshit smokescreen that is. He doesn't want to be held to account.
Convinced him not to do it. And then if what you're saying is true, then Mark and Cindy were like, okay, well, let's get a plane ticket to get Chris away to save him. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I know. It's peculiar, isn't it?
And yes, when Mark was like, I'm gonna get the guns. I'm going over. I got a plane ticket, and I told Mark, like,
I got the guns that I'm gonna bring on a plane.
Yeah, I got the guns. I've got everything that I need. So, like, he's going into detail about it. Like, this is not something that, as he tried to claim on Mark's stream, was just taken out of context. Oh man, I don't know what I was saying. I was over-exaggerating. This is not an over-exaggeration. This is not just a slight hyperbole. This is something that he just whole cloth made up and expected to just be able to get away with because he was pissed off with Mark. Yeah. This is how Adam tries to get back at people. He sows these little seeds of discontentment with other people and then expects that he's not going to be held to account for it. Like we're not in the information age. You fucked Adam Moore.
Dude, I'm right with you. What do I need to do? I'm coming over right now. And then Skylar had talked him out of it.
Skylar was the voice of reason?
Yeah. So technically, yeah, I was about it. I was down. I was ride or die. I was like, I'll fuck with you and do this. Like, I'll fuck murder. I'll go take out a pedophile. I don't think that's murder.
So it was Chris. It was.
I was like, I'll fuck with you and do this. Like, I'll fuck murder.
I'll fuck goat murder.
I'll fuck goat murder.
Very convincing.
Right.
Okay.
Go take out a pedophile. I don't think that's murder.
No, it's murder.
So it was Chris. It wasn't Kent Hovind.
Well, I don't know. My suspicion is that Mark Stoney wants to kill Chris Jones and Kent, but it doesn't make sense if he's protecting Chris. So maybe he doesn't want to kill Chris.
It is odd. Just Kent.
Steven.
Pause.
Mark.
Adam's not saying that in defense of Mark Stoney. I promise you that. He's not saying that as maybe Mark isn't trying to do that. He's saying that because what he said earlier directly contradicts that. He's talking out of both sides of his mouth, and there's a part of his brain that went, whoop, whoop, whoop. Wait a minute. If I say on one hand that me and Mark Stoney are about to get on a plane and go and murder this person, but at the same time, Mark Stoney's known to have gone and protected this pedophile, those two things kind of don't jive with each other. So I've got to point that out and scratch my chin and go, I wonder how that's the case. And I find it funny how Steven, whenever Chris Jones comes up, he doesn't say anything critical about him. You don't hear him say anything critical about Chris Jones because, I mean, he doesn't want anything critical of Kent's good buddy to be in his documentary after all.
I find it kind of funny. I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm bowling are the best I've ever hoven.
Mark hates Kent Hovind. I don't care what he says publicly. He's not going to say publicly what really happened. That's why he wants to kill him.
Okay.
This is the crowd that Cindy Lincoln uses to rally against Kent Hovind. This is the mental stability of the people starting all the rumors about Dr. Kent Hovind.
Exactly. Adam Lohr's mental stability or lack thereof should show. Yeah, this is his source. And even he says, I'm not sure I don't know if they're laughing about it. It's obvious he doesn't know what the F he's talking about. And I just have to point this out that Bowen ripped off my thumbnail that I made for this video.
He did. No,
this
he
is
did.
my thumbnail that I made months before this documentary came out. And I'm convinced that Bowen ripped off my thumbnail. I don't know. Audience, what do you think?
There should be a poll. You should put up a poll.
I'll put up a poll. And Aiden, why don't you give your final thoughts, and then we'll end the stream.
Close it out.
I'm done with this.
Yeah, sure. No. I've held you hostage on YouTube long enough. That's fair enough. But suffice it to say that this absolute cavalcade of shoddy editing and contradictions and failure to even establish a narrative that makes sense within the context of itself that is these documentaries is such a great example of how when you become too insulated within a specific group of people, and more specifically within a specific set of ideas, really, that will allow you to make things like this, which to you and to your flunkies will seem like a glorious vindication of your, as Stephen put it, spiritual hero and personal friend, Dr. Kent Hovind, but in reality just comes across as a total mess on every regard to somebody who has a little bit of critical thinking and can really actually put two and two together as far as the facts of the case that's being presented is concerned. So with all that being said, Stephen, you know, maybe I said one or two things that were a little bit hurtful in this stream towards you, and you might be a little bit upset about that, but I don't think that what I said amounted to a fraction of the claims that you made about people like Cindy, about people like Mark, over the course of this video alone, let alone what other trash that you're going to produce in the future regarding this. So all of that being said, I'll give it to you, AJ, to close us out.
Yeah, just, you know, basically, Adam Lohr, you're a lying scumbag. Bowen, you're a manipulative scumbag, loser, and coward. And this documentary is very poorly made. The production value is extremely low, and you should be ashamed of yourself for taking advantage of somebody who's clearly apparently made the call from the psych ward, or while was in some type of depressive episode and was not in their right mind and did not want the footage, the audio to be public. And it was also clearly spliced up and edited to fuck. So screw you. Adam shouldn't have said those things anyway. Mark Stoney is a good friend. He's not an attempted murderer. These are a bunch of lies. And it boils just down to slander, basically. So you made a shitty documentary with poor production value that had a bunch of lies about somebody who I consider to be a good person, and you also stole my thumbnail, asshole. So basically, delete your channel and go away forever. And with that, I want to just say thank you to everybody in the side chat. Thank you to the people who sent super chats, and anybody watching this video. Yeah, like the stream and like the video, and you know, thank you, Aiden, for taking the time to do this. You know, I'm glad. You know, glad we got to. I'm glad I had somebody to help me tackle this monster of a video. So thank you for that.
No problem. Nobody makes a 15-minute video into an hour-and-a-half one quite like me. So there you go. No, have a good night, everybody. Thank you for having me on, AJ. Seriously, take care, everybody.
Also, I have 8 times as many subs as Proverbs Guy does.
Woo!
Okay. See you later.